65 million years ago, when dinosaurs ruled the Earth, each realm on the planet was ruled by its own apex predator. The infamous Tyrannosaurus ruled the land, the Mosasaurus conquered the waters, and the skies were dominated by yet another supreme hunter, a massive flying reptile, with a robust, thick-walled skull and powerful jaw, making it a formidable predator that would terrorize prey caught under its shadow. Dominating the ancient aerial landscapes of what is now Romania, the Hatzegopteryx was the true ruler of the prehistoric skies. Belonging to the same family of enormous pterosaurs known as the Azhdarchidae, these enormous flying titans possessed distinguishable features that allowed them to reign over the skies, famous for their long necks, which allowed them to scoop up their prey even from the depths of the densely covered forests. Their bodies, relatively shorter than their large heads, made these pterosaurs look quite bizarre, but gave them improved aerodynamics and enhanced maneuverability during flight. One quite famous member of the family was the Quetzalcoatlus, believed to be the largest animal to have ever flown. The Quetzalcoatlus was a massive flying reptile that ruled the North American skies 65 million years ago. Like most other Azhdarchids, it was an enormous beast, having wings that spanned up to 40 feet. That is comparable to the size of 2 full-size school buses. These long wings allowed them to reach the heights of Everest, helping them scan the surface below to find food either from the forests or the oceans. However, one special member of the Azhdarchids, although not as big as its relative but noticeably bulkier, had a much more powerful skull and bigger neck muscles to strike with more force, made it a more aggressive predator, was the Hatzegopteryx. During a fossil dig in the late 1970s, in the Hațeg Basin region of Romania, the first remains of the Hatzegopteryx was found. Not knowing what they had just discovered, they found parts of a skull and humerus of an unidentifiable species. Identifying these fossils turned out to be a challenge for the paleontologists. The size of the bones indicated that they belonged to a theropod dinosaur, like the T-Rex. At the time when these fossils were discovered, paleontologists had limited information on the dinosaur and lacked historic evidence, which hampered the judgment of the researchers. It was only after the discovery of the remaining fragments of the fossils that the paleontologists realized they had made a mistake. At this point, it was clear that they were looking at the remains of a relatively uncommon pterosaur, possibly the largest one. Although intriguing, after this discovery in the 1970s, it failed to spark any serious interest within the scientific community. So much so that scientists did not even bother to name the creature at all. It was only about 30 years later in 2002, when research resumed on the fossils, found that a French paleontologist by the name of Eric Buffetaut named it the Hatzegopteryx-tambema, referring to the location where this creature once resided. After studying the remains of the Hatzegopteryx, paleontologists estimated that it was a relatively larger flying creature, possibly making it the largest to have ever traveled through the skies. The Hatzegopteryx grew up to a height of 18 feet, almost the same as a giraffe. They compared its size to one of a small airplane, like the Cessna 162 Skycatcher. A typical Hatzegopteryx skull measured a whopping 8 feet and 2 inches. The Hatzegopteryx resembled in some ways as the modern-day bird. It predominantly thrived in forested areas, particularly in the coastal zones of the Belgrade region. These regions hosted a rich variety of plant life, offering cover and nesting, but also served as the ideal habitat as it relied on the trees for roosting and took advantage of their height to launch itself into the skies. In this ecosystem, the Hatzegopteryx thrived, as it was unpreyed upon by any predators. It had only one aspect left to concentrate on: hunting. Their sheer size meant that they could not rely solely on fruits and nuts for their diet. They needed more to satisfy their hunger. The Quetzalcoatlus, more passive, focused on skim feeding and scavenging most of the time. They fed on smaller prey that either lived in the water or would roam the skies to find dead carcasses to feed on. However, the Hatzegopteryx adopted a different strategy, being the only species in the Azhdarchids that knew how to pick and win a fight. Its large wings allowed it to hover over forests and oceans in search of smaller prey on the surface, which mostly happened to be smaller dinosaurs. It would use its keen eyesight to identify prey on the ground or near the surface of the water, and would swoop down, fighting for its meal, lethally injuring its prey or anything else that came in between. Although both species are often compared, each had its own unique set of features. Their size was probably about the only similarity between them. The Quetzalcoatlus had a narrower beak, an elongated skull, and a longer, slender neck, allowing it to travel the skies with much grace and ease. On the other hand, the Hatzegopteryx boasted a broader, powerful skull and a shorter, thicker neck, features that helped the Hatzegopteryx tear its prey down to pieces. Although the Hatzegopteryx weighed close to a ton, it had unique adaptations that allowed it to fly through the air with ease. Its broad wings helped counterbalance its weight, thanks to air spaces within its bones, similar to modern-day birds. These air spaces extended throughout the body of the Hatzegopteryx, helping reduce its weight significantly. Additionally, the Hatzegopteryx was equipped with strong flight muscles that gave it the ability to generate enough lift and power to launch its massive body into the sky. While an impressive aviator, it did not stay in the air for days like how modern birds do, and to save energy, it would utilize strategies like gliding in the air, using air currents, and primarily launching from elevated places. But as soon as it would spread its wings, terror would be felt by small dinosaurs all around. Due to the warm climates where the Hatzegopteryx lived, many small creatures would reside in that same habitat. Creatures such as the Telmatosaurus, the Zalmoxes, the Barbatodon, making them the perfect meal for our flying predator. Nonetheless, as we all know, their reign would soon come to an end due to a large asteroid impact. Wiping out all pterosaurs and living creatures on Earth, paving the way for a new predator to take its place.